Hello and good evening. Today we have brought together, um, first welcome to AUC Tahrir for today's panel. It's in celebration of World Environment Day 2025. This year's theme is putting an end to plastic pollution. I'm very excited to be here. I am joined with a variety of panelists. I will introduce them in a moment, but I wanted to give a special thank you to Dr. Yusra for initiating this conversation and always being willing to engage with civil society. And it's a very important aspect working around plastic pollution. Before we start, I have a couple of surprises. We have with us, there it is. So earlier this year, no, it wasn't earlier this year. It was last year, sorry. Last year, working with AUC's executive education program, we had a specific training. Dr. Yusra joined us for the training on financial mechanisms for multilateral environmental agreements. And Dr. Menza was our partner in this. Would you like to come up and just take a moment to talk about this?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nadine, and I'm very happy to be here today. Where's my camera? Like that way? Like this? Okay. So thank you very much, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm grateful for the invitation. Such a great panel, and such a, I think, monumental day and event. I'll say a few things about this kit here, or the announcement of this kit, which we were very happy to partner, of course, with SNE as a group and with the partners that we have worked with. I think the idea here and the validity, the value of this proposition is that it offers a prototype for the kind of capacity building initiative that we can do in conjunction and partnership with the civil society and the academic community. In very short words, our program, the Executive Education Program at the School of Global Affairs and Public Policy, the
Six. 30 the first time. Yeah. And then went back to bed.
I think somebody needs to put themselves on mute. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir. So again, the Executive Education Program, which I represent at the School of Global Affairs and Public Policy, is, in very brief words, the capacity building arm of the school. And in this regard, we're very interested in working with civil society initiatives and state organizations to strengthen their capacities, to improve their ability to deal with day-to-day challenges in their respective fields. And in this regard, when we heard or learned of the opportunity to partner with SNE on such an important and valuable initiative, we didn't really think twice. It was a matter of immediate participation and invitation. I think the experience was very educational for all of us involved. I think the lessons learned, the value propositions offered by the experts from all over the world were very important, and eventually the outcome, which is this toolkit that we are announcing today, was, as a matter of fact, very useful and very beneficial for folks who actually managed to utilize it and benefit from it in the negotiations and in the respective also, I would say, learning and participation in the field of environmental awareness, and specifically on the issue of plastic. This is also a prototype in the sense that this experience, I think, can be replicated with some tweaks and some contextualization in different aspects and different fields, whether within the sustainability sector at large or even in other developmental fields, whenever we're thinking or considering how can we be more efficient and more resourceful in our tackling of such challenges. So thanks again for this opportunity. I'm very much looking forward to the panel today and to all the learning that will take place. And yeah, let's start. Thank you. Thanks, Nadia.
Thank you. Just a quick note on this panel. We worked. So this panel in specific was on plastic pollution, but it can be replicated, as Dr. Menza said, it can be replicated across different multilateral environmental agreements. So we're looking now at another one for climate change. and looking at replicating it again with the same partners, hopefully. And this is our little surprise for today. This is, oh, sorry. Let's try again. This is a quick video. The singer I will announce afterwards. It's a very well-known singer, and this is the launch of our Plastic Mish Fantastic campaign. Why isn't it? Sarah? Here.
قالوا زمان ان البلاستيك ده فانتاستيك، والصدمة كانت لما الروايات انكشفت بيأذي كائنات حية واللي بيموتوا كتير قوي. يا بني آدم ما تقرصش عالطبيعة بالقوي. بدل ازايز المية بإزازة ازاز، وبدل ما تمشي بكياس خلي معاك شنطة قماش. وانت بتتمشى لان اللي تقدر عليه، خليك إنسان نبي، خليك بلاستيك فري. ويا سلام على إعادة التدوير، أي حاجة هتعملها هتعمل فرق كبير. يا سلام على إعادة التدوير، أي حاجة هتعملها هتعمل فرق كبير. أي حاجة هتعملها هتعمل فرق كبير.
So, Sarah, I should not be given this again. I should not be allowed to have. So here we're coming here to talk about plastic pollution, and we all have some very lofty goals. We have the global treaty on reducing plastic pollution. We're going to be going again for the negotiations in August. One of the things is we constantly have very high aspirations, and we may not agree on what direction we want to go. We may not agree on necessarily what the aspirations are, but we can agree on several things. First, nothing's going to change overnight, and it is only through incremental steps. Hence, the name of this panel is From Lofty Goals to Incremental Action. So where are we today? And where do we want to be? And it's only thinking in the next 12 months. So let's not think of ban plastic. Let's actually look at circularity today and look at what we can all and how we can all work together in that direction. This year's theme for World Environment Day was an end to plastic pollution. And that reminds us that solutions must move beyond lofty goals and be grounded in action. I am Nadine Wahab, your moderator for this evening. From lofty goals to incremental action, we are joined by leaders and doers from across government, civil society, and international agencies, and the private sector, all working to shift the tide on plastic waste. Instead of formal presentations, we will dive right into the discussions, where each speaker will respond to key questions. We'll then open the floor for questions towards the end. We have a few people joining us in-house, and then we will also be asking online people, for those joining us on Zoom, you can start putting your questions at any time into the comments. So we'll start by setting the scene. So we'll start with Ahmed Yassin. I'm going to go around, and introduce the panelists. We have with us today, We have with us today Ahmed Yassin, who is an environmental activist, marine plastic researcher, and climate action activist, climate justice activist. Mohammed Kamal, who is joining us over on Zoom, is the director of Greenish. Dr. Yusra Abdelaziz is with the plastic unit at the Ministry of Environment. Dr. Imam Abdel Mohsen is working with the plastics unit from UNIDO. We have Hassan Barada with Hussein Barada with Dawar app, Shireen Abdul Rasool, formerly of Drumstick or currently with Drumstick, and Alban de Manoville with Very Nile. I'm sorry I butchered everyone's names. I apologize from now. So we will start with Ahmed. Ahmed, can you help ground us in Egypt's current state of plastic pollution, especially in marine and freshwater systems? And what does your research show us that we may have overlooked?
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Nadine. It's really a pleasure to be also representing Sustainable Network Egypt and just back from the UNOC. So I was very like overwhelmed with information, yet I'm very, very happy that we are tackling a very important topic on how plastic is related to our water streams and oceans and Mediterranean, our beloved Mediterranean. But the most important thing here, you're asking me about Egypt, which is a tricky question, but I will try to be, as comprehensive as possible. So very important to understand that plastics or single-use plastic are not just, the bottle or the cups or the straws. It's way beyond that, which is mostly the fishing gears that it's always abandoned, like ghost nets, and all types of fishing nets, ropes, also the rubber itself. It's a part of a waste or the plastic waste that we have to be looking into. So the most problematic thing that most of the people or most of the activism and especially the recycling facilities which are working deeply or maybe doing lots of work in there, they're not really looking into the irrecyclables as they call it. And this something that I have to be against onward, because most of the people want to or try to focus on a single type of plastic. So that means that it's what we call it selective activism. Is that the right word? We need to be working on all types of waste and marine litter. And marine litter is really, the what we call it the generic, terminology. And here comes very, very important work coming from the recycling facilities, especially startups that have been starting work, especially from 2022 and 2023, on how to tackle all kinds of marine plastic. Sometimes it's very efficient, reliable, like building materials, sometimes car parts. But the most important thing is the dead plastic. How, this terminology have been introduced whilst working in my research with recycling facilities, and they always start talking about that this is a dead plastic which comes because of salty water, broken down, very, very fragile, and also of course, from the sun and salty water, and it doesn't have, characteristics of a durable plastic that can be recycled. So they called it dead in Arabic, plastic made. So they said that bluntly. So what happened now, the recycling facilities are, and the new ones, especially the young startups, are looking into solutions to that and find a way to go through that kind of single-use plastic, or maybe we can say the fishing nets, or even it's reused several times, but at the end it's littered as and become a ghost net. All kinds of plastic are found in the fishing gear, so we can speak about PP, nylon, PE, even sometimes a very a unique kind of synthetic textiles, and it's very, very polluting. So the fishermen themselves also, they do understand the gravity of the problem, yet they always think that the sea will solve the problem, but it's not. And that's the classical words that we've been hearing a lot. But now they fear that if recycling is there, if it has a value, and that's what we've been working on, that to raise the value of such kind of marine plastic. And I'm pretty sure in Egypt, maybe we're not yet there, but there is a very good business in I call it wise recycling because I'm against the source. So I don't want any more plastic, but the wise recycling is to get the plastic from where it was made, manufactured, and it's still lying in the sea, from the bottom of the sea, and to be part of a most valuable kind of manufacturing process like cars and to be a closed loop concept. Also, all of the recycling facilities that had the chance to experiment and they succeeded very well, yet also we need mass production of that kind of thing, not plastic, the mass production of the pellets that can be part of the circle itself. It was a big success, but they need more funding, they need more technology, so to be, part of the new business that we're looking for. So hopefully I made that clear. So I think there is a good ecosystem, more push and more power.
Don't put the mic down yet.
I'm here.
Yes, I would actually like to just push you to talk a little about your experience with fishermen.
Mhm.
And so from the ground up, what does it look like? You know what I mean? First, educating them about plastic, understanding the problem, because I think we are first speaking English. So that already limits our access. But I think it's important for these grassroots organizations. Alban will also be talking about some of the work on the Nile with the fishermen. But I'd like to understand what your experience with the fishermen in Alexandria are. In trying to educate them and get them to understand what is the importance of removing this plastic.
Very important. So I've done a really thorough surveying on how to understand the gravity of the problem. So fishermen, mostly, they do understand, but they think that there is no solution. And they always think that littering ghost nets is the way that we put it, for example, at this edges of the port. So not going to dive into the sea or going to tangle or strangle fish and other type of, marine creatures. But the most important thing, they do understand that there is a climate change problem. All of them, no exceptions, because they've seen some, consequences of what's happening, years. So always talking about 2000. So they had more fish, better weather, something related to the extreme weather events, and also Alexandria. I've been witnessing lately some extreme weather events that affected also fishing. So now fishermen cannot really predict the fishing season. They always shocked about every single day there is an announcement from the port authorities that you're not allowed to fish because of course they're trying to explain, but it needs more work. Second of all, and it's very important that fishermen they're intersecting with other communities like the port workers. The port workers are very important because we think that fishermen are the only, actor playing in the equation, but it's the port workers who are helping them, supporting them, and of course trying to understand how we can, go with the process. And for example, one of the port workers is he knows the problem, but he said no solution. And we need accessibility also to awareness campaigns inside the port itself, not just doing that in closed rooms or fancy halls, because I see it very crucial that fishermen are very, very excited to work and such. And when they found out that they are collecting ghost nets, for example, in one day, and they are giving it or donating it to the recycling facilities, sometimes we pay them but a very modest amount. They feel I've done something because and also I'm protecting my fish stocks. So they are very well educated, but they need that push I told you about.
To bring them that last mile back to what was actually happening. So we have Mohammed Kamal joining us on Zoom. Kamal, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So from your work with Greenish, what structural challenges are driving plastic leakage and poor waste management across poor waste management outcomes in Egypt today?
طبعا في البداية, thank you very much for inviting me and having me on this great panel. There's a wealth of expertise. I think there's two parts to this discussion. There is the element of leakage or mismanagement of plastic. And then there's the element related more to the structural issues we're facing to transition our waste sector to something more rigorous, more robust, that prevents leakage to happen. So, for starters, a lot of the plastics that we use at the moment in Egypt really started maybe 30 years ago when there was a big surge in developing plastics that are convenient, that are, let's say, designed for consumers, single use. Um, a lot of these plastics were not designed for disposal. So the disposal was not taken into consideration. The only thing that was taken into consideration was the convenience for the consumer. And because of that, we see that a lot of the design of plastic products by nature, and this was not only in Egypt, is designed for convenience, but is not designed for disposal, is not designed for recycling, is not designed for a circular economy at all. So we have a lot of plastic products in our waste mix that are pretty much designed to be used once. And once you finish using it, you end up just disposing it. There's no other use. And very little of those plastics is actually recycled, and very little is actually properly designed to be recycled. So forget about PET bottles. Some of them are not even that easy to recycle, but they're recyclable, they're collectible also. But if you look at different forms of single-use plastic bags, it's much harder to recycle those bags and it's much harder to capture them. Same thing with a lot of other small forms of plastics, styrofoam or polyester, cigarette butts, the small ones. And with a lot of these products, the lack of regulation globally and nationally on design, on the product shape and type, has meant that the burden falls, العبء كله على إدارة المخلفات. So the burden falls entirely in the solid waste management system, which usually means that you're receiving something that you probably don't have a lot of choice on how you deal with. So you're either gonna fully dispose because getting value out of it is not hard, or you're gonna find ways to recover energy or any form of resource out of it. So to make it simple, plastic was not, or the plastic products predominantly were not designed while taking into consideration how you're going to get rid of them or dispose them. That's the primary problem. And it's a problem we continue to face in Egypt today. However, there has been positive changes. There has been a lot of positive steps taken, biggest of which for me is the extended producer responsibility, which Dr. Yusra would probably be best suited to speak about a bit more. But that's a great step going forward. It's very hard to engage producers who predominantly focus on making profit from products. It's a tough discussion, but it's a very important discussion. Because this takes us to the second part of my sort of reflection or response, which is the structural issues we're facing, the structural issues with waste management. I think the problems we face with waste management in Egypt, I would prefer to sort of summarize it into one very specific point, which is I think we still do not perceive waste as a burden, and we're trying to look at waste as an opportunity. مع ان يعني waste is still and should always be perceived first as a burden, then it can be looked at as an opportunity, or there can be potential out of the waste. Because waste management predominantly is a public health issue. It's something that you need to manage safely to protect people. Then once people are safe, you can start to find ways, provide interventions, projects, encourage private sector to recycle, to provide alternatives, to dispose better, etc. Unfortunately, sometimes we try to jump to the endpoint where there is value, and at a more structural institutional level, that has rarely worked. We're not rich enough, and waste management is extremely expensive and very overlooked how expensive it is. It's an annual budget cost on the government that they need to pay for every year. And where are we getting this money from? The money you pay as a resident or a person in Egypt is nowhere near enough to what the waste management system actually needs. So this is the main structural problem I usually see is there is a general perception that we can jump to the opportunity before we address the core issues. And the core issues are still we have issues with storage at the municipal level, we have issues with collection and containment of waste, التخزين والتجميع للمخلفات, still a very big challenge. And there has been steps, but the problem is it's usually finding the right sort of collaboration between the different stakeholders. We still have not found that perfect, or not perfect, the ideal scenario or the workable scenario. There's been a lot of attempts, but to date, we still have that struggle. And as long as stakeholders are working separately in silos, we will still have major structural issues. And because of that, this takes us to the first point, which is leakage. When stakeholders are not coordinating, there will be leakage. When the private sector is providing services to the formal sector and the informal sector is working separately, disposing their waste in X locations, this creates sort of a space where leakage is easier to occur because of structural issues in place. If we look at this is the last part, if I took too long, if we look at the last 10 or 15 years in Egypt, there has been a significant improvement in collection, which is great. But I still think there is more effort needed in bridging the sort of relationship between the different stakeholders, and getting to improving our collection to a higher standard will require us to revisit the sort of authority different stakeholders have at the municipal, at the governorate level, and who is responsible for what and who should be held liable. One last thing to mention is the application of the 202/2020 law is very important. The Executive Regulation 722/2022 اللائحة التنفيذية. To date, as someone who's worked with a lot of government institutions and authorities at the governorate level, الوحدات المحلية ومكاتب البيئة اللي موجودة في المحافظات, there is still a gap in enforcing the law and a gap in adopting the law itself. So not all the staff are yet fully trained on the law, and that's okay. The law has been ratified and the executive regulations have been out in 2020, 2022, 2023. It is not something that has been 20 years or 30 years like the environmental law. That just means we need to do more work to get more staff that work on solid waste and environmental management equipped so that they understand their roles and responsibilities. And this is directly related to reducing the mismanagement of plastics and reducing the leakage of plastics at the national level.
Thank you, Kamel. I will come back to you in a moment with another question. But we will go, that leads us directly to Dr. Yusra. The ministry has launched several strategies and targeting plastic pollution. And we are very lucky to have you working with us. What are the most critical actions that are being taken now from the plastics unit? And then I will follow up with the second question. Where do you see the biggest gaps?
Good evening or good afternoon, everyone, and I'm happy to be with you all. And thank you for this panel, because now we are talking about plastic pollution, which is the main issue on the spot for pollution in the environment. I would like to thank Ahmed and Mohammed for their interventions, and Mohammed hit some critical point I would like to highlight. Yes, we are facing a lot of challenges and there is a lot of gaps, but I prefer to be optimistic and look at the full half of the cup. Really, we are stepping baby steps in the law, but before we don't have a law at all. So when we don't have a legal framework, we are lost. And we are trying to make initiative, and it's booming and fail. So we don't have a solid ground to stand on. When we have the waste management law launched, we are having a solid ground to step on, and we have a real sure steps to be done in the plastic pollution issue and all the waste management issue at all. All the waste management. So I'll talk specifically on plastic pollution. On plastic pollution, we have 3 articles in the law that are talking specifically for plastic pollution. Article number 27 and article number 18 and article number 52. Article number 27, it's about putting a specification and standardization for the single-use plastic bags. After researching and having a national strategy for banning or reducing single-use plastic bags, we found out that it is the most critical waste that we have. We are consuming a large amount of single-use plastic bags and we didn't dispose them in the right way and they are released in the environment. And this is the point that Mohammed hit, the difference between leakage and mismanagement. Sometimes we manage single-use plastic bags and sometimes it's leakage to the environment and the leakage is much more. So it's very, very bad problem regarding single-use plastic bags. And also it is not attractive for recyclers because it's very light. We found out that there is a gap between the consumption all over the world and Egyptian consumption for single-use plastic bags. That's why we put an article specific for single-use plastic bag and we make a strategy for using or reducing the single-use plastic bags. And also when we start to implement article number 18 regarding EPR, we start with single-use plastic bag as well. Because we found out that it's not only about the product itself, it's about the life cycle of the product. How much we consume the consumption of this product, how we get rid of it. It's free, so it's a comfort zone. Everyone is using and using without thinking how I'm going to dispose, how much the load of the environmental load or burden on the environment by this product, the energy, everything, the material, the cost of this material, the importing of the raw material of this product, everything. So that's why we start with single-use plastic bags. I guess also the article number 52 regarding the law, it's about the green label. When we think about the green label, also we think about the green label for plastic packaging. Because after all, it's all about the mismanagement of this product or the packaging of plastic. It's not about the plastic itself. The plastic itself, it's an innovative product and it's very useful sometimes. And sometimes it saves the environment. But we need to understand that some product and some using or habits that make this product harmful for the environment. It's not about banning plastic and reducing plastic. Plastic saved us in the pandemic of COVID. We are all going to use the single-use items because it's very healthy and very suitable for this era. So sometimes it saves the environment and save the health and save the humanity. But we need to know what to do in each using or each situation. Talking again about single-use plastic bags, we have a lot of effort have been done by the ministry and also a collaborations that never have been done before. We have collaborated with the industrial sector, and this is for the first time. They are resisting all the time because when you say environment, so the industrial sector are going to say no, don't touch our sector because it's the economy, it's money, it's business. But for the first time, we are agreeing on having a campaign to reduce the single-use plastic bags in collaboration with UNIDO, by the way. The campaign name قللها or reduce it. Also the EPR declaration launched by the Prime Minister. It's for applying the specification for single-use plastic bags to be 50 micron. What's the benefit of having the single-use plastic bag 50 micron? The benefit is that we are going to reuse it again because it's now more heavier and can be reusable again. And it's attractive for the collector. It can go with the collection system. And also, with all of this happen to plastic, we are working on the infrastructure and having companies for collection and trying to formalize the informal sector. So it's really a very big effort that have been done by Ministry of Environment. It will take more time than this, but I just want to remind Mohammed that we are a very new law, just born 2 years ago. So we are moving in a baby steps, but shortly but truly steps, and we are now strong and now well known And now in collaboration, also a key word that is very important and we learned through the last years, the collaboration between entities. We are collaborating with civil society and I guess we have built a very good relationship. Right, Alma? We have a protocol with you. We have a protocol with Very Nile. We have a protocol also with governmental entities, with GOIC. We have a lot of protocols with either civil society or governmental entities, and we are trying to have a fundraising through dealing with the international organization like UNIDO, World Bank, GIZ, all of these entities to fulfill what we are planning to do. Because the financial mechanism in the government is not effective that way. So we need the international organization for supporting. Also academia, we have this collaboration with AUC and we have a collaboration with other universities and school. We have collaboration with schools and awareness with schools. We have an exhibition last week with a school in Sheikh Zayed, and they are making a very, very creative exhibition with the recycled product. All of this awareness, level of awareness, that's what we need. The last keyword that we need in this issue is the awareness on the national level. On the international level, I wish you pray for us all. In the INC, I guess Muhammad is suffering in the HUDs. Now they are attending the head of delegates meeting, and we are in the last stage of this negotiation. We are trying to balance between the investment and the environment. We are trying to make a compromising to gain as much as we can and have a financial mechanism that can support us in the transaction phase and to have financial mechanisms that supports the capacity building and the knowledge transfer and sharing information and all of this. Thank you very much.
I actually have a follow-up question. Yes, for those that are not aware, the INC stands for the International Negotiating Committee, and we were actually both Dr. Yusra, myself, and Kamal, and there was obviously a quite substantial Egyptian delegation and Greenish. We were part of, with Muhammad Kamal, we were part of the Greenish delegation for civil society. And we will be going again this coming August. Just to touch on that is, so you mentioned the financial mechanism. Obviously that the financial mechanism is there to fill in the gaps or support local governments, including local society, be able to deal with this quite building problem. Where do you see the biggest gaps are? Where and how and whom do you think could be most useful to support you in your particular work coming from a policy angle and looking at implementation on the ground?
Okay. This is a very hard question, okay? And tricky, by the way. Look, I'm not going alone. We participate in INC 1 and 2, just the Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But suddenly we found out that it's bigger than this. And then the delegation of Egypt are participating from the industrial sector itself. Ministry of Petroleum and Ministry of Industry and the Industry Chamber, all of these are participation, and the delegation of Egypt is about 12 people participating in the INC. Why? Because some articles are really crucial, because they are talking about capping the production of plastic. Capping the production of plastic for maybe 12,000 factory in Egypt producing plastic will be a disaster. This is something that considered as red line for us. So if the financial mechanism can compensate them on their loss, so we will accept this capping. But I guess this is very hard. So if the financial mechanism just be for the cleanups and sharing knowledge and technology transfer, so it will not be enough to compensate all of this economical loss. So this is one of the gap and one of the red lines that we are negotiating in the negotiation. Talking about the chemical of concern, yes, we can consider this because we will not accept that using a hazardous substance or chemicals in the industry, and we export all of this by license from the EU. So if they are going to change these chemicals, we are going to comply with this. But if we are talking about capping the production, no, this is a red line.
And I think you said something very important that I want to point to, is that it's a just transition. This is exactly what it means, is to ensure that we are able to meet the treaty's goals with with the support and resources that come in the form of financial, come in from the treaty perspective, come in the form of financial architecture and particularly a financial mechanism. And this is somewhere where you and I have agreed actually from the very beginning. This is a very important part of it. Now moving to Dr. Imam. From UNIDO's perspective, how do we translate these national strategies into local industries and policy changes that scale? And then what's working and what is not? And thank you, by the way, for the campaign.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to join this discussion panel. Second of all, I would like to answer your question, but I want to give you the perspective of the project that I'm working on from the UNIDO. It's in the circular economy of plastic value chain. The point is that everyone's talking about plastic, it clicks to their mind the single-use plastic. But from the concept of the circular economy, we just want to highlight that the plastic itself as a raw material is a natural resource that we need to reserve it. So the project is also supporting the manufacturing of the plastic to sustainable products and avoiding the use of the plastic raw material itself for the single-use plastics, because it's losing a raw material which is a petrochemical derivative which is not really sustainable for so long. But actually we need it for building material, we need it for pipes, we need it for electronic devices, household, chairs, tables, everything, all the cases of the mobiles, the laptops, the TVs, the fridge, everything, you need it in your life. But we need to direct it in the positive way that avoids any problem for health or for the environment. So this is one of the perspective. Also, the project is working on it for the circular economy, is supporting the manufacturing of the plastic for sustainable products, but also for to maximize the benefit of using the plastic itself. We are supporting the redesign, creative redesigns that makes use of the same product with using less raw material, same quality, so we can reserve or also reduce it, but reduce it in another way. It's not only reducing the use of a single-use plastic, no, we also reduce the amount of of the raw material you are using as a virgin material. Also, we are enhancing the increasing of the percentages of recycled material. So taking though from this perspective, translating policies is a way hard activity to be taken. It's all about the methodology, the implementation. Methodology, it takes too long to assess the right ways, the positive impacts, addressing all the pros and cons, all the gaps with all the stakeholders. For this part of the policies, the stakeholders started by the manufacturing industry, of course, and starting with the Ministry of Environment. Usually, an international project starts with governmental directions. So this was a governmental direction that everyone had to follow, but it doesn't go successful anyway with just a governmental initiative or a direction that everyone has to follow. So it's usually successful if you know how to follow the right direction, the gaps to tackle it. So it started with the stakeholders that they had to accept the policies. The policies had to be made in a way that is applicable to our nature of the country, because different countries have different natures and different consumptions and different amounts of plastic availability, imports, exports, manufacturing, and investments in their countries. So we can't generalize any policy, even if we know that it's a successful one in another country. So it took us along to in several consultation sessions through the project in cooperation with the Ministry of Environment, and of course all the stakeholders from Ministry of Industry, to guide us for the accurate policies with accurate methodology to work on. Another way, so the policies so far are applicable. All the policies and the new regulations, and there are new standards for manufacturers of the plastic and the alternatives of manufacturing the plastics. There are new policies. They are all delivered in a successful way that is applicable to the market and the local manufacturers, and also it's accepted from all the stakeholders from all ministries and government. So this was one way. Another way was the awareness. Once you took the buy-in from the manufacturers or the stakeholders that they accept to go one step forward with you, then you have to create the market need for them. So how are you going to create a market need if no one knows how to go? So we started for the awareness. We started awareness, the national awareness campaign. It took us a lot of effort and work with the Ministry of Environment for the design, the key messages, the branding, and tackling the different age groups, different societies, and so on, social standards, I mean. So, and finally, it was launched at the beginning of June. We're working on it forward. We're approaching different age groups. As Mrs. Yusra, Engineer Yusra said, we had an event with the school last week, and we're having upcoming different events. We are going to approach end users in the hypermarkets starting the beginning of next month. And also the campaign was launched online, and we're going to have several activities on TV and online in the upcoming month or 2 months. This was another thing. Once the consumer, the end consumer, accepts the awareness and understands more, and they understand in a good way, it's not that it's only not you have to follow. No, it's they understand that this is good for them, and they understand that there is alternative in the market, and the alternative is available. So this is a very successful step. The last thing for translating the policies for the implementation is supporting the SMEs or the private sector, industrial private sector, to increase their amounts of manufacturing these alternatives or these user-friendly plastic products that we are talking about, because some of them are more sustainable. They are already plastic but sustainable, which is okay. It's a very good alternative meanwhile, because it's going to be reused and recycled in an easier way. And some of them are different alternatives from paper, from textile, and other materials. Taken in consideration that we are supporting, of course, the recycling process and increasing the recycled amounts in each product. That's why another specifications we are working on it now, are going to be delivered soon. Because it's not only about recycling and collecting, but recycling in an accurate industrial way avoids it avoids giving out dangerous chemicals in the industrial recycling, because if it's not recycled in a good manner, in an accurate way, it gives a lot of harm, more than if it was not recycled at all. So this is one of the points that we are tackling as well. And finally, we are not really, as a project, supporting so much the biodegradable alternatives, although it's accepted by environment perspectives, because it takes us to the first point, that we are going to lose the raw material itself. So because plastic is a precious raw material, it's better either to decrease its use, save it to alternatives, or save it to sustainable products, or to recycle it in a good manner, instead of just making it just vanish in the environment, because it's not going to be available in maybe 100 of years. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to use this opportunity while I have you here to look at some of the challenges we have in Egypt, but with a global lens, and see if there are some lessons learned from other offices, from other countries, that we can try to bring into here, whether it's implemented by the government, by agencies, by UN agencies, or by civil society. I know UNIDO has a huge experience in this area, but I wanted you to kind of take this opportunity to highlight some of the sort of best cases globally working around circular economy. UNIDO, I would assume, but anything that you have found.
We have very successful examples in Germany and in Japan for the recycling and for the circular economy perspectives and the technology of altering the production processes. But usually the main problem in Egypt currently is the consumption amounts. The consumption amounts are very, very huge, and they are huge more than being controlled or just one entity working on it. So that's why I understand the ministry's environment, they are having a hard time because the consumption amount is very, very big. A lot of plans are available and a lot of technologies that can be implemented, but for this kind of amounts of manufacturers and the amount of production capacity and the amount of end users consumption, it's very huge. So we need to reduce it first. That's why we started by the national campaign of reduce it and the awareness of transferring to using another alternatives. Then after we use it as for the 2030 objective that each individual would use only 50 single-use plastic per year, for the individual. Now I think it's around 250 or 300, something like this. 500, I didn't want to say, okay. So, I think by decreasing gradually, and if we reach by 2030, but this is of course a 5 years milestone, 50 single-use plastic bags per person, I think this is controllable because any plan could be successful at this milestone, but 500 per person, this is a very, very huge amount. So it's not taking forward anyone anywhere. Even the plastic as a raw material itself, we're not giving it a chance to use it for more sustainable products, pipes and electronic devices and so on. And we want to highlight on something that we have, of course, raw material manufacturers in Egypt, huge companies, but they don't satisfy the local amount. So we import. So this is not taking us forward anyway. So I think it's much more better to decrease the single-use amounts and direct the plastic raw material to more sustainable products.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
thank you for letting us know. We all need to use less plastic bags.
Yeah.
So we're going to now move into market-based solutions and innovation. One of my favorite projects, I'm going to take this actually, I have two of my favorite projects when it comes to reducing plastic down up here. Very Nile is so dear to my heart. I've worked with them now for years. They are a member of SNE, but more than that, I think that the community that they have built around that project is amazing. And thank you, Alban, for joining us, and thank you for bringing this project to life. It really is something that we should all be proud of, especially in the Nile and the work that you guys have done. Now, Very Nile's work transforms plastic waste to value-added products. So we take a plastic and what we call upcycle, which is adding value to this product and then selling it or reusing it. But upcycling isn't the complete solution, as we know. One of the best things that we have, I will tell everyone globally, since I have a bit of a global audience here, please go to Very Nile shop and support the project and buy. They have wonderful, wonderful products. I've been using them for years. So what role should upcycling play in Egypt's waste ecosystem? And then I'd like you to expand on that and tell us some of the barriers you face, some of the barriers you faced early on, being one of the older organizations that has functioned, and some of the barriers you face in scaling up. I think those are two very important aspects.
Thank you, Nadine. It's a pleasure to be here. What upcycling can do at a global or national level? Unfortunately, not much. As Kamal was saying, plastic waste is a burden. It's not an opportunity. Of course, at a local level, yes, it can be very positive. And look at the impact we have at Verinal. We upcycle a few thousand plastic bags every year. Well, it's good, but compared to the consumption at a national level, it's nothing. So we're not going to solve the problem like that. But look at the other impact we have. We have train and hire 25 women from underprivileged islands working with us now on a full-time basis. They had no job before that. So that's a good impact. That's something we can do, again, at a local level. What's the big picture in what we do? It's awareness, definitely. We know that collecting from the Nile will never be enough. We will not solve the problem of plastic pollution by collecting from the Nile. We need to stop leakage. We need to stop that at a national level. But to do that, indeed, we need to involve all the partners. We need to talk to the industry. We need the general population to be aware about the challenge that we have, about the problems. And then we can change. So collecting from the Nile is not a solution for the next 200 years. It's a solution for the next few decades until we have a good system in place and everything is stopped before it enters the environment. And look at the consequence, because Dr. Yusra was saying, yes, we don't want to affect jobs, and I'm totally, I totally support that. However, plastic production is affecting jobs. Take the touristic industry, for instance. Who want to swim in a sea full of plastic? All the tourists will run if we offer the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea, and what we see is full of plastic. So, you know, it's always a pro and cons. Yes, we don't want to affect the job of the plastic industry, but at the same time, we want to make sure that no one is taking the job of someone else. We were talking with the Ministry of Irrigation. They are spending millions in fixing the pumps because the plastic gets stuck in the irrigation pumps. So the cost of not collecting is extremely high. So when we see only the cost of collecting, stopping the leakage, it does not work. We say, okay, to collect 1 ton, it will cost 1,000 guinea. Yes, but if you don't collect, how much will it cost? Millions, exactly. So we need to look at that. And that's the core of what we do at Verinal. We want to involve everyone, students, corporates, governmental institutions, governorates. We work in Minya, we work in Asyut, we work in Sohag, to create a debate, create a discussion. And what I remember is like 10 years ago, this was not happening. No one was talking about plastic pollution. So I see hope. I see that things are changing. The EPR is an amazing new policy that hopefully will, you know, help to collect more. Imposing a minimum thickness on plastic bag, it's extremely positive too. It's a first step. Again, are we building a circular economy by recycling? At a local level, yes. At a national level, we need more drastic measures.
So I completely agree with you. Recycling and upcycling is not the solution, but it's an interesting entry point, and it grabs a lot of attention from those who are just learning about the plastic pollution problem, and it gets them involved because I get to carry around a bag made from plastic bags, and then I get to educate everyone I meet. But I think it's also important looking at Verinal not only as as an upcycler, but as a small business in this sector, especially an innovative business. So I'd like to take this opportunity to see what, if you could take a moment to tell us about your successes, obviously, but what challenges you face, and hear what kind of gaps do you feel between where you want to be and where you are today, and who could help you in that? Whether it's government, international, I mean, and looking at identifying the gaps and seeing how we can fill them.
Well, the main challenge again, and Mohamed Kamal said it, collecting waste is a burden. Definitely. It costs a lot. So the main challenge we have that the more we collect, the more we lose money, basically. We pay the fishermen more than the market price. We have full-time plastic operators also that we pay. We pay for the transportation. So at the end, when we recycle 1 ton through our partners, because we send most of the waste to factories, right, the more we collect, the more we lose. And I believe the private sector is the first that should balance its impact. All the big companies are using plastic, as we said, as a very convenient way to package their product. They should be the one compensating. And everyone in the chain, not only the end producers, because we see the big brands, Nestle, Coca-Cola, L'Oreal, etc. We see them, but who's providing plastic to them? So they are not the only one. Plastic was oil, so it was pumped from the soil. So everyone in this chain should contribute to make sure that there is enough funding for initiatives like us, but also for the government to be able to properly collect and treat the plastic. So that's the only way we will solve the problem, especially in economies like Egypt. We were talking about Japan and Germany. Most probably, the context is a bit different. But here, yes, it's the producer responsibility. And again, this responsibility is not only the end producer, it's everyone involved in this process. So for us, that's the biggest challenge. How can we collect more, have more impact, and be present in more locations? Because when we're in Cairo, for instance, we involve schools from Cairo, Greater Cairo, universities, private companies. We can do that where we are not, meaning we are not in Aswan yet, so we cannot do that there. Meaning the awareness we have, somehow it's local, because we need to invite people, we need to meet with people, we need to talk to them. Of course, we're online, but it's not the same thing. So the challenge is how we can be present in more locations to collect more, to increase our impact, until hopefully in 50 years, 100 years, we'll stop working because there won't be any more leakage into the environment. And this is our dream at a point. We want to stop working.
So Alba would like to quit working. So please, throwing plastic out, please. One of my favorite people, Shireen, I have her listed here under Drumstick. She is truly one of those people who saw a problem and decided to try to solve it herself. Sometimes what it felt like, or hearing her, is all by herself. She's a product designer and has worked on plastic alternatives. So thank you for all the effort. You have made some amazing impacts. Hold on, I lost my... So moving to you, Shireen. You've been developing local plastic alternatives now for quite a few years. And as you know, I'm a huge fan of your products. So what does it take to get these alternatives to scale in a market that's still dominated by cheap plastic? So you are actually competing against the 500 plastic bags that each of us buy or utilize every year and then throw up. Again, please stop doing that. So what is it like trying to compete with such a cheap product?
Thank you, Nadine. Thank you for your very, very kind words. And thank you for this amazing panel. It's really, really nice to be among such big expertise that are all fighting so hard to find a solution to this very clear problem that we have. Just to clarify, I'm mostly the Drumstick. We mostly focus on designing and manufacturing alternatives for single-use packaging in the food industry, mostly B2B, just so that everybody knows what we're talking about. One of the many big problems that we face at Drumstick, particularly in scalability, is something that Ahmed Yassin touched upon, which is how everybody from the smallest fisherman or fresca seller or housewife to the CEO of the biggest supermarket chain, we all know that it's a problem, but nobody really believes that we can find a solution. So we're all so very well versed in how about microplastics and how it's bad and the leakages and the phthalates, but nobody really at core believes that they could do anything about it individually, from a beachgoer or a CEO that they themselves decide to buy plastic packaging in tons. So that alone is one of the biggest parts of the challenges, really, where they don't really believe that they can do something about it. On the day-to-day, and because we live in a very capitalist system, it's the dollar and cents that make sense in the end, that really lets my clients, who are mostly the F&B and supermarket and fast-moving consumer goods industry, they decide upon those, the dollars and cents, and how much is it going to cost, and how much does that price compete with the styrofoam or the plastic solution that they already have. And of course, the biodegradable recycled product often loses. For many things, plastics is, as we all know, is a byproduct of a product, and it has been widely used since the 50s, and so it has reached a certain economies of scale that it's hard to compete with a new product that's coming in. My products are recycled 100% because, as beautiful as I find paper to be, it's still a very precious resource that doesn't make it my first go-to choice. And so a recycled product has a story long before it's even pulp. So there's cost, there's collection, there's deformities in it, and then starts the molding, and then starts the pricing. And so it's hard to compete with plastics. And also, there's not much support legally to have any sort of tax cuts that would maybe help us compete in such a cutthroat market. And there are challenges from the demand side, and there's also challenges from the supply side. The challenges from the demand side is we've become such a consumer society that people have gotten so used to that sparkly, shining styrofoam plate that with a nice shrink wrap on it, that they themselves didn't grow up on that. And so it's hard to so far compete with a recycled natural product that would naturally, by virtue of it being recycled and by virtue of it being natural, would have impurities. So from the demand side, we have that question mark. And from the supermarket side, it's a highly inelastic market. So even if they are fully on board, they are not quite, as an industry, I'm not talking about individual clients, they are really taken by how that may harm their image to their clients. And so they are not, oftentimes are not willing to take that risk, which renders it very difficult for businesses like mine.
So my follow-up question is, what kind of support do you need? But I think that's just, it's, putting lemon into a because I think there's more support than there's more needs than there is support. But my question for you would be, if you were to create a situation, or let's say a business, out of you had all the resources in the world, what would you do, and what kind of partners would you like, both in the private sector, in government, and then in civil society? So let's just, throw pasta on the wall and see if it will stick kind of situation. So just creatively think, what is the context that you would like to enter the market? What are the needs for you to enter the market? And then what kind of resources would you like then to be able to succeed?
Yay, I get to dream with you right now for 5 minutes. Well, I think first and foremost, from what I've witnessed in meetings, is that sometimes we just need to take a decision because that's the decision. وخلاص. We're not going to have any single-use plastic. نقطة. We're not going to discuss why. We're not going to discuss how it makes sense. We're not going to discuss, oh, but this and that. خلاص. Somebody has to take a bold decision, and that's that, and no going back. That is something I would love to see. That is something I would really love to see. And
I thought you were going to say something else, but it turned out to be that the decision.
yes, no, and we're not going to break down why. We're not going to get into that conversation and exhaust ourselves and tell each other things that we all already know. Somebody just has to draw that line and not explain it. And I think with this huge hype of real estate that seems to be sprouting everywhere, conceptually that may mean that we have many cities. You know how one compound has the university and the hospital and your work and your gym and your school? Okay, if we take those many cities and have little prototype cities that has no plastic, what would that look like? So this is something that I would like to see. I mean, since we're going to this high-walled real estate market, then how can we make that work for us? I think this is one thing I would like to dream thinking of, and have that prototype contagious and replicable and make it work for everyone. Since they're promising us, the stars and the sky and beyond, well, show me.
So that's another way to bring the private sector in. But I'd like to point out, I think what Shireen is talking about is finding a test case where we can examine what it would mean for the supply chain to cut plastic in this small area. I think one of the things that like I said in the beginning, we all have lofty goals. We can all talk about banning single-use plastic, banning plastic. In Egypt, with the amount of plastic we have, it is very, very difficult to even have that conversation in a realistic manner. So it's not that we don't want or don't believe that single-use plastic should be ended. I think that we do need test cases. And I love your idea of imposing it in tourist areas, because most of the guests and most of the tourists come from countries that already have this high ambition around reducing single-use plastic. Thank you so much.
I would like to thank you for this idea, but to apply this on some places like what Nadine mentioned, some touristic area, because we suffer from the coral reefs loss and the biodiversity loss in these areas. So it will be innovative and applicable in those areas, and I wish it will be applied.
Sorry to jump in, Hussein. I apologize for pausing before getting it. So we did have, I remind everyone, we did have a plastic ban in the Red Sea and South Sinai governorates, and it took a lot of work for us to get these bans passed. Both governors, and I was at the time, Eco Dahab was trying to push it in Dahab, ran into so many issues. from supply of alternatives to what do we do with the plastic we have to actually implementing. There wasn't enough policies. This was prior to the law. And so there were so many issues with just an immediate ban that I do think that the incremental work and testing it out in smaller areas, I think would be very, very important. Hussein, thank you for joining us. This is the first time we meet, and I really look forward to working with you moving forward. You're working at the intersection of recycling and digital traceability, which is key for any kind of circularity. So can you tell us a bit about your work?
Hello. Okay, so a bit about the work. Okay, before the work, I'll just give you a brief idea what got us into that in the first place, to give some context. So we started back in 2017, probably launched the first waste management app. It was just to, we started in Maadi and Tora, just to give people the chance to take photos of street waste. And then that photo would go to a collection company responsible in that area. They would go clean it up and take an after photo. So we did that for some time. And then, although on an awareness level, on an engagement level from residents and so on, it was meaningful and impactful in that sense. The quantities and the size of the problem demanded that we use technology to ensure that not kilograms or even tons of waste is collected, but thousands of tons are collected and traced. So this is where we started working. We work with the different stakeholders in the value chain. So starting from collection, this can be collection from the formal sector, but mainly since we're talking about plastic, many types of plastic is a feedstock for recyclers. So it's a material that has a price. So the collectors collect it, the informal sector, informal waste management communities, they collect it because they can compact it and they can sell it to recyclers, okay? Okay, plastic is many types of plastics, right? So you have plastic bottles, you have which is PET, you have other types of plastics such as your shampoo or the components in cars and so on. You know, so many different types of plastics go to different kinds of recyclers. And there's some plastics that are difficult to collect and don't have a recycler. So they go to waste to energy, for example. They can be used as energy. So every type of plastic has its own, let's say, supply chain. And when I say supply chain, I'm not thinking of the current supply chain where you're using petrochemical version plastics for the feedstock of recyclers. I'm talking about more of the future supply chain. So the supply chain of the circular economy, where products are made in majority from recycled material. So in that sense, the manufacturers of these products need to ensure that they have the material to make these products. So in that case, their supply chain would be the garbage collectors, you know. So traceability, essentially, digital traceability of plastic means that we give the application to the collection and we give it to the recyclers. And we work also with brand owners who have commitment under EPR, extended producer responsibility. That is, they have a responsibility beyond selling the product itself. And then we log the transactions that happen from collection until the recycler, okay? And these transactions show how plastic moves, as how is it traced, right, from one point to the other along the chain. And through that, you find out that the supply chains themselves, there are other components. There's a social component also. So a lot of these collectors, for example, don't have basic HSC, for example, health and safety, I mean, at their compacting facilities and so on, or processing facilities. They don't wear PPEs, obviously, right? Poor working conditions, all right? So you need to improve these poor working conditions because these are going to be the future supply chains of the manufacturers, right? So we get to do a lot of social work in that respect, and we get to ensure that the plastic is traced along the value chain until the recycler. And then a lot of these recyclers end up exporting the material to Europe, for example, and so on, because not a lot of material plastics here until today. There's no, for example, bottle-to-bottle plastic being used in bottles, right? But it has been abroad, and so this is going to happen soon. There is a recycled component being used. If it's used abroad, there's a demand for that. So the demand for that is usually driven by an access to market. There's legislation that says you need to use X amount of recycled plastic in your product. So companies abide by these legislation if they want to sell in these markets. So this is how it happens. And if it happens here, it doesn't happen with, it happens purely from an economic perspective. Because sourcing certain types of plastic sometimes is more economical than using virgin material. So they use it here, and it can be used I think it's used in paper, but they don't talk about it, right? So there's no conscious consumerism in the sense that you're not trying to make a product, like a shoe and say, it's made out of ocean plastics and sell it for a higher, that's not here in the culture yet, okay? So yeah, I mean, just to cut a long story short, sorry for the long, long explanation, but
It's not long at all. Take your
yeah,
time.
the thing is, there is like Ahmed Yassin he's talked from very greenish. He talked about design, all right. So there's a design, and the supply from the beginning of innovations in design. There aren't any commercially viable plastic alternatives in the world today. So you can't remove all plastics because you need to get something else to replace them. But there are innovations that are being done at this level. And I agree that on the design level is the ultimate level because you're thinking of the product as its disposal as part of your extended producer responsibility. And then there are stages all through the supply chain, right? And every stakeholder in the supply chain has a role to play. Consumers, all the awareness, that's part of it, but it's not all of it. The manufacturing capacity is a big one. There needs to be enough recyclers. I've witnessed in the last 8 years recyclers popping up, and then you'd find the material that was not being collected because it didn't have a price. And then the recycler pops up, and suddenly this material is a resource, and then there's a collection, and there's a price point to it, and it starts moving in the supply chain. So many different roles in the supply chain, which we do digital traceability, that's the idea, and ethical sourcing, the social component I spoke of.
I don't mean to interrupt, but can you explain what digital traceability is to the
Yeah,
audience?
okay. Digital traceability is finding where the collection happens. So you can, for example, simply, let's say the collection happens in the Nile, okay? So if you log on your app that the collection happened there, then you have a digital trace that the plastic was collected, for example, from this specific location. All right, and then let's say the plastic gets put in a gonia bag and gets moved to a compactor, and then the compactor logs that he received this plastic, so you know that the first processing happened at this location. And then in each location, you can have a profile. So this processor is composed of X amount of workers and so on. So you're like, the digital transformation of waste management. And the first step is to mark the points along the value chain until the recycler, perhaps in the future until the manufacturer again. Then we go into the circular model. And at the same time, by logging in these different points in the value chain, you can like start taking steps in formalizing an informal sector, because you start seeing the conditions that these people work in, you start providing them with the tools to improve their working conditions. You're logging that improvement. You're logging the movement of material. So you're aware, you can measure EPR and policy level stuff on the ground. You can say that we logged, for example, 50,000 tons of plastic that moved from this city. Let's say that a small city, for example, doesn't consume a lot, okay? It didn't get affected by, or still didn't get affected by world or Western consumerism, so it's not really there, and they're not using a lot of, for example, plastic bottles. But if you trace, for example, that there has been a collection of, let's say, 50,000 tons or 20,000 tons from this city, and you know that the consumption of this population is 40,000, then you know you collected 50%, for example. That's important data, you know? That amount, if it's in Cairo, it would represent a much lower percentage, for example. And then you can trace it to its impacts, whether it's on the Nile or on the Mediterranean, on the Red Sea, in the desert, in a protectorate. You can measure the impact you have by tracing where the plastic is traced. So that's, in a nutshell, what traceability is.
Thank you. And can you just connect that with the importance of setting up a circular economy? How traceability is a key component in closing that circle?
All right, so, okay, circular economy. When I think about circular economy, I sometimes get this image of these mythical perpetual motion machines that have no, you know, perfect circle. You know, everything gets recycled or goes back exactly into the. It's not always like that. There's always, you know, something that inefficiencies in processes. But so circular economy. So circular economy starts with the designing of a product, right? And then the product is sold in the market. And then after it's sold, it's thrown away. And here starts the traceability, right? Because all companies have data about how much they sold and where they sell. So we have data in that respect, right? So the problem is with the data after you disregard plastics or whatever, any kind of waste for that matter. Traceability would work on undifferentiated waste or organics or plastics, different types and so on. And then you have a log of material. Like I said, each material type has a different recycler that recycles it. So traceability allows you to be able to account for different types of, for example, plastics. So traceability of PET is different than traceability of single-use plastics, is different than traceability of HDPE, and so on and so forth. So when you have these numbers and you can know how much got recycled, where it was collected from, and you can have data about how much in general was recycled and how much was collected and where it was collected from, and you can measure the progress towards a circular economy against the targets, because you know how much is being thrown out there, but how much is being collected, where it's being collected, how it's being collected. This information is integral for building a recycling plant to ensure a certain feedstock and to have access to supply networks, and to putting in targets to achieve circularity by a certain year. How are you going to know how close you are to these targets without any data? Yeah, I hope this answers your question.
Yes, we'll go to Dr. Iman and then we'll go to Ahmed. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for your information and your efforts into traceability. I want to add one thing more. This initiative may be very important for the circular economy in another perspective, because technically, from a scientific point of view, each particle of plastic can be recycled from 5 to 6 times. Then after that, it degrades. It's not going to give you anymore any of its physical properties, either hardness or viscosity. So if you're going to shape it in any shape, it's not going to give you the shape. It's going to get a cracked end product. So it's not going to be good anymore. So this is a huge problem, because every time you collect and you send the plastic for recycle, the same bottle, you don't know if which particle was recycled how many times. So this problem, I think we're going to face it in the future, but not very far future. We hope increasing the amounts of recycled materials, but we started working on it scientifically, as the traceability, and if any laboratory equipment are available or any testing are available to determine how many times is this ingredient or this plastic product recycled in advance. But currently there is nothing. It's not. We're going to count on the traceability of each product. So this may be very important in the manufacturing process for the plastic manufacturers, while creating their recipe of virgin material versus recycled material. They can counteract this to avoid any problems in their end products and avoid any misuse for the end users for their products. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ahmed?
Thank you very much. Also, echoing your words, and a point to ponder that we have, for example, the European Union started to, give us sort of a law that to stop all recycling facilities from recycling fishing nets, like to stop till they are trying to ratify it and to review every single article. And at the same time, Egypt has stepped like more than maybe a great steps in on how to recycling fishing nets, which is especially PPs and nylon and other types. And this means that we're not really doing a work with a global level, that on the same level, but at the same time we're seeing Egypt is stepping ahead with a global south, global north sort of thing that I hated so much. And I hate that labeling so much. But at the end of the day, it means that we have a market, it's open, it's ready. And still, the European Union have done, it's not, maybe they have some sort of a point, but I don't see the point till now why they've done this. And most of the recycling facilities now are exploring the market in Egypt and trying to find out a solution. So 4 or 5 companies now are exploring the opportunities to have more capacity. That kind of thing means that if there is, a shut doors, as we said, like some pessimistic words that have been, told today, we have a very optimistic and open doors for other opportunities like that. Fishing nets in the European Union, people pay for, or maybe the collectors, they pay for it to be recycled. In Egypt, they pay for it to get it into their recycling facilities because it's worth it. So the point is here is not, we don't have a book or a guidebook. Rules are changing, the things and the markets are very dynamic, and it's open for more capacity. And this is why I told you this, because I see Egypt as a very big potential, not for recycling, for the wise one that I told you about. So, and also to keep that precious resource. I love that words. And also when Alban said very important, and I quote him, that it's still, we need to tackle the problem, but in a way that it's as a reliable process and a reliable resource. And that comes, and I'm very pretty sure that we can do that more and more, and expanding the recycling facilities to be more reliable on and to be part of the equation. Shutter Island effect need to be, demolished, and also the triangle of government, civil society, and the citizens of civil society, including also social entrepreneurs and green entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for a very rich conversation. Before we open the floor, I know that we don't have any questions online. I want to remind everyone online, please take this opportunity and put your questions in the chat. Sara will help us by giving us your questions. And before we move to the questions, I'm going to go backwards. So we'll start with Dr. Iman. And now we want to look forward. We've identified some gaps. And it seems that funding is a huge gap. First, starting with the fact that collection is an expensive endeavor, and the plastic that comes out of collecting plastic is not necessarily going to cover the cost. Second, that plastic in the ocean, which is marine debris, which, as Dr. Yusra pointed out, does have huge effects in the Red Sea, particularly when we're talking about Red Sea corals and some of the most magnificent sites in Egypt. If we're looking 12 months forward, I don't want to think 20 years and we are no longer having plastic. I want 12 months from now, if you were to have one thing happen in these 12 months, just kind of dreaming here. And then how or whom, if you are going to be able to support in implementing this, please let us know. But who would you like support from some of the aspects here? We have civil society, we have the private sector, and we have government and international community. Who do you think could help you in attaining that?
Kriti. Very, very tricky question. Okay. Do I have to choose only one person? One
No, you can choose as many as you like.
You know, I love everyone.
I would just like you to keep it attainable within a year.
Okay. The project supports different entities in the same time. This is the main objective of the project. It's working on the value chain and getting everyone connected, and everything is achievable. Was the main objectives of the project. So hopefully in 12 months, we are going to see a lot of positive steps, because this is going to be the end of the project. So we have to finalize all the deliverables we're working on currently. Yes, for the end users, I will see significant steps maybe in 3 or 4 months maximum. You're going to see people looking different in the hypermarkets. They are going to go with their shopping bags. They are not going to take a lot of single-use plastic bags. And we're going to work hardly on making this more successful as much as possible in many different governorates, not only Greater Cairo as expected. No, we're working on 4 governorates and spreading more extra milestones. For the private sector, industrial sector, yes, you're going to find more manufacturers with more technology transfer. We're investing in the technology transfer from Japan. This is going to be ongoing in a couple of months before the end of the project. So I think maybe around 10, 12 manufacturers are going to receive this kind of investment in their innovation and different production process business development. So hopefully they are going to have new products or manufacture alternatives, or maybe they are going to have products made in a more sustainable or circular economy perspectives. And for the policies and the government, yes, we are going to deliver more policies and more manufacturing specifications, maybe in a couple of months as well. So I think we're going to have more positive deliverables very soon. And because the project is working successfully with everyone, and we love to support everyone, so we have to do it. I can't only choose one. Thank you.
No, thank you. And you didn't say 50 bags by the end of the year per person.
No, this is 2030 objective. 2030. But I think, yes, we're going to find more people having this multi-use bags. Also, this is an extra milestone. The project is working on it in cooperation with Ministry Environment. We're going to have collaborations with several multinational companies to give it as part of their giveaways with their products. You know, this kind of when you buy something, you get a free mug or a free something. We're going to start making collaboration to give the free multi-use bag instead. So this is going to create a more calm, maybe we can say, market, because it's not a burden for anyone to use the multi-use. They don't have to pay for it. They don't have to pay a lot of money or go hard to get it or wait for someone to give it away. They are going to find it as a giveaway with their normal purchase products in the hypermarket. So this is also a collaboration ongoing, but it's not yet finalized. Thank you.
Thank you. And when are you launching in Hyper?
Beginning of July, 3rd of July.
3rd of July?
3rd of July.
And you're talking about Hyper where?
حرفيا بعد بكرة.
بعد بكرة.
Next weekend, yes, next weekend.
Next weekend, where?
Yes, next weekend is Greater Cairo.
Sorry, where?
Next weekend, we're starting in Cairo, Greater
In
Cairo
Cairo,
Governorate.
okay.
Yes, each
Now,
weekend,
the reason I'm
one
asking is
governorate.
I want everyone to go. I was going to give an assignment for everyone who's watching to go to
Yes,
Hyper,
yeah.
get a picture with a bag, and put it online. Let's
We
support the
have,
campaign.
It's Carrefour, Carrefour Maadi, Carrefour Almaza, and Spinies. We have different Spinies, I can't remember. And we have Hyper Sheikh Zayed, Hyper Al-Ashir min Ramadan. And yes, most of the big chains, they are going to have the branding of the national campaign, Al-Lilha, which is reduce it in English. But there is a very big logo, and you're going to find the advertisement everywhere with the shopping bags and the logos coming up from the ceiling and a lot of material. It will be very significant. And Khair Zaman, yes, we have Khair Zaman as well on board.
Amazing, amazing. So for everyone who's online, unfortunately not from Egypt, you will not be able to participate, but everyone in Egypt, please go to your local market, find a bag and take a picture with it. Share it online. Let's raise the awareness and call attention to this amazing
Yes,
campaign.
and if you send us the picture, we're going to share it on the page of the Ministry of Environment, the UNIDO Egypt page, and the project Circular Economy for Plastic in Egypt page. Thank you. Thank you for supporting our national campaign. Yes, this is the kind of awareness we're expecting from people. Thank you for supporting the national campaign. Thank you.
You're welcome, of course. Hussein, same question. 12 months from now, what kind of change would you like, and who would you like support in implementing this change?
Hello. 12 months. 12 months, I'd like to see the EPR mechanisms in place. And I'd like it to be done in a way that would push basically the manufacturers to enter EPR and push towards the circular economy. So in details, what would happen if the EPR mechanisms were to be implemented, which they'll soon be implemented. I hope in the next 12 months, that would be amazing. What would happen essentially is that a lot of the brand owners we work with would enter EPR voluntarily. So they would enter it, for example, because they have sustainability mandates. Let's say a multinational that has sustainability mandates. But a lot of other companies, there's no real incentive for them to enter EPR at the moment, to do voluntary EPR. Because economically it might not make sense, and the reward is not very clear, and the punishment either. So I think that for me would be the key thing. Just so simple, but so impactful if that happens.
Shireen?
Well, two things. For change, I think I would very much love to see all of the awareness campaigns, starting from schools to ministries to NGOs, to speak and make more of a stronger connection between plastic and comfort than plastic and the environment. because essentially it's a consumerism problem more than it is that is really harming the environment than it is the material that of choice for our consumerism. So I would like for this coming year to see more accountability on a personal level, to attach the argument of protecting the environment to our personal choices than to a sea turtle that I've never seen in my life or a dolphin that I only see in screensavers. That for people to have an attachment um, uh, of love to the environment than of feeling guilty towards the environment, because that doesn't mean anything. Because I think the time of speaking, of raising awareness of plastics and microplastics is over. Khalas, it was important and now everybody knows, and now it's time to change the conversation about awareness to the specific individual. Because me as a person, I'm not going to do anything for the globe, of course, but I am only accountable to my choices. And what does that mean to me? To sleep in the end of the day feeling that I was not part of the problem. And that alone is enough, because we've gotten too comfortable with, you know, holding our hydro flasks, but then doing nothing else. This is one change I would love to see by the end of the year. As for the support, I would very much love to see more support from the private sector, bolder support, like putting aside the Excel sheets and making choices for the future we want to see. It sounds like a cliche, but then honestly, what are we really doing? What we're not, like, us and our Excel sheets are not going to be here in 20, 30 years. And so I would very much like to see more private sector taking bolder choices for building the image that they know very well will pay later on. It's not like they're going to do it لله وللوطن يعني. But thank you.
Thank you. Alban?
Yeah, something very simple, very achievable, and to jump on the plastic bag, to jump on the private sector. Take the big brands of supermarket in Egypt. You have like 10, 20 maximum. You put them around one table, and you tell them tomorrow all the plastic bags will be for Robagene for 25 esh. They won't be afraid of competition because all the competitors will do exactly the same thing at the same time. The producer of plastic bags, well, they will do reusable bags that they will sell for a higher price to the supermarket. So you're not affecting anyone. What we need in terms of support, one official with a bit of guts, calling them, you come tomorrow, this is the solution that I tell you, and in 6 months this will happen. It's very easy. No negative impact. We have to try.
Well, interestingly, they did it in Sharm el-Sheikh.
Yes, I think we do the threats.
So before we move to Ahmed, I'm going to go, as we were going backwards, we're going to go to Kamel. Are you still there?
I am, yes.
So the question goes to you. One action and who do you need support, or one change, and whose support do you need or do you think would help accomplish it?
أنا يعني the thing I advocate the most for, having been I've been working on this for a very long time, and it's nearly a decade, which is crazy to think about. The single thing we can all do, but we're not doing, is reducing our single-use footprint. I personally think there's a lot that we can do to reduce our single-use footprint, and it's not as hard as we think it is. It can be actually much easier than we think, whether from reusable bags or even in the slightest of things. Some of the things we take as a privilege, we don't realize how much it's affecting the environment. When we order food or when we eat outside, it's very easy to ask for things not to be used. There's a culture now as well in a lot of restaurants in Egypt to give you this the sort of single-use gloves that you can use as well. To give you wrapped items, giving you a sense of cleanliness when this is not really true. This is what I think one single thing we should focus on as people is reducing our single-use footprint. The one thing I would hope to see in 12 months is I would like more people to be aware of the impact that plastics, mismanaged plastics, can have on our health. So mismanaged plastics can affect our health, and that's why we need to be more conscious. As much as we talk about industry and what they need to change, people also need to be conscious how it's affecting us. It's very unfortunate that when I do some work, some people can burn a plastic and not be aware of its impact on our health. You can also break down a plastic and not be aware of its impact on other people's health or other ecosystems as well. In short, this is what I hoped more people would be aware of the connection between health and plastics.
Ahmed, same question.
Yeah, so the past 12 months I've been shocked by the marine plastic thing, and I've been really going through it. So what I want to see in the next 12 months is a more look into the marine plastic problem, the marine litter. And as we have really massive, brilliant success stories in the single-use plastic, even the Ministry of Environment, so we want to shift a little bit to this really important thing. I've seen it, the abandoned, vicious, monstrous plastic that's hiding, and it's not obvious, so it's hiding under the sea, so we need to look into it. Fishing gears, very, very important, and to see that amplified, also to see all the ports of not Alex, of course, because I'm biased, so all so all coastal cities and Egypt to be leading on the marine plastic problem and solving it. And I think we have a law soon, I think, try to, along with the authorities of the ports, to be working on that, and I will hopefully see a significant change, and hopefully to be also part of it.
And we will end with Dr. Yusra. So as the I will give you mine. Sorry, everyone.
We talked a lot.
Yes. So, and I do want to add one additional thing is how can we help you?
I was thinking about the same question all this time, and I'm waiting.
Yes. So what would you like to see happen in 12 months? And then how can we help you make it happen?
Okay. Okay, that's good. I'm dreaming big because I have the opportunity to think a lot. So I'm dreaming big. I wish that everything that we are cooking in the policy and regulation and the strategy coming into life and being implemented. I wish that all of this happen. The EPR, the national strategy, stop the free retailer distribution for single-use plastic bag, all of these policies يعني showing to life and being happened. How this could be happened? I guess you can help in supporting us in pushing the behavior change. This is coming from us. This is coming from the beginning from us. Yes, it's important to have a regulation and a law, but you have to start the change from yourself. Acting positive to the environment and not being a part of the problem, as you mentioned, and being sleeping that you are finally you don't have a planet B, so you don't going to lose your planet. You are acting good to your planet. So I guess if I find out at the end of this year that everything we are preparing and doing effort to have in our policy and regulation and the strategies coming to life, this will be really, really so fulfilling for me.
We really hope all of that comes true. I want to give, does anyone have a question in the audience? Dr. Menza, please go ahead.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, thank you a lot. I learned a lot from all of your very valuable and enlightening contributions. I have maybe one overarching comment slash also question, and it's not really directed towards one of you, but maybe to the whole panel, if you can help us all think through this. From the discussions and from my previous, maybe limited, not technical knowledge about the topic, it seems that a lot of the thought that's going into this, a lot of the activities, the thinking process, I would say more focused on issues that relate to recycling, to waste management, to the industrial sector. And these are all, of course, very important and pertinent points when we get to think of the issue of the challenge of plastic, which I believe it's really a challenge. It's an overarching issue. I mean, when we talk about plastic pollution, we're talking about so many different things here. In addition, of course, to these issues that relate to cycling and recycling and that relate to waste management. The question is, to what extent can we, as a quote unquote low income or low middle income country, work towards building or designing or creating a national strategy or plan that really puts into consideration what we are after here? Yes, I know Egypt does have a national strategy that relates to plastic pollution. It's mainly focused on single-use plastics, but I believe the issue is much wider than this. This is, I mean, the science has been settled already. Plastic does take lives. It influences, it negatively affects everybody's livelihood in Egypt and the rest of the world. And the issue is really multifaceted. I mean, here we're talking about, I think when we're talking about national strategy, we should also expect the Ministry of Health to be involved, the other ministries also, the Ministry of Education to be involved, awareness, resistance. The industrial sector is always going to be resistant. I mean, they're not going to be signing off on eradicating the use of plastic. Of course, there has to be a battle here to be fought. But this battle, I think it needs awareness. I'm not sure if Egypt as a country is very actually aware. I mean, if we go down the market next door or go to buy anything from any shop, the amount of ease that we use plastic with in our daily food intake is really staggering. It's frightening. And people just use it very uh, without, I don't know if it's awareness or lack of interest or just convenience. But I think we have, I mean, a lot of work to be done. And I'm just laying the question here to you. What do you think should be done in order to make this a reflective or an initiative that really relates to the reality of the country as a whole, rather than being a response to a rich sort of industrialized country-oriented agenda? Of course, in their own perspectives, the main focus will be, because if you go to your typical supermarket in the US or in the EU or even in more developed countries around us, you'll find that the amount of plastic being integrated into their daily affairs is much less than here. So this is taken for granted on their hands. So they have other issues, maybe more grand issues. And on our side here, I think the issue is more ingrained, and it relates also to the livelihood of people, to the health sector, and to how people are dealing with their own daily affairs and integrating or interacting with plastic in such a convenient manner. So what, in your opinion, can be done to try and also battle this from a bottom-up sort of perspective rather than just a top-down or a legality issue? Thank you.
So I will open it. Who would like to answer? I have 3 people. Kamal, if you'd like to answer, please let us know. Kamal's not there. Let's start with Ahmed Yassin and go down the.
I'm going to be very short. So, for example, if we are talking about recycling facilities, they should be treated as not like the ordinary companies. For example, at least 20 years, they should have easy laws, accessibility to everything, incentives from everywhere, connected to all parts of the government, so they can have easy mission to do whatever they want. Also, access to funding, and most of them, like young startups, are doing great, but funding and a little bit complications and legalities are stopping them from doing so. So they need to do more effort to do so. If they are there, especially Egypt now, it's a little bit sort of emerging economy. We're not third world now, so we are emerging economy that can withstand the capacity of doing massive startups because we are a very big country now in terms of population and in terms of other factors related to the economy. The second thing, which is very important, is what or to be ready with the infrastructure can withstand all of this. It's there, but it's again shut in a shutter island. We don't have really the important connection between the collectors, the recyclers, for example, and the manufacturers, because most of the recycling facilities are saying the same thing. We want the plastic in the sea, we want the plastic in the streets, but we don't have a strategy for collecting them, not because of, there is a certain problem, just a miscommunication that we need to be tackled in a way that gives them access and to understand what kind of things that they can collect at what certain times. And sometimes there is problems related to the understanding of the Egyptian mentality, which is sometimes you collect from certain places and they start imposing, they need someone to collect it from them. Then they change their mind after 1 week and they say, we need money for this. So they don't even understand that the value is collecting the plastic itself from the place. So they leave it as it is, but they don't want to sell it, you know. So that's the point. Also awareness to the community itself, because sometimes, you know, what we call it, burg gawzat, they always change their minds in 1 week.
I'd like to answer your question from a design perspective. We have to have, and it's easily doable because it's not too long ago that we did not have access to plastic with such ease. And we are one of the countries that, particularly in Africa, where we have normalized using natural resources for food packaging. So from a design perspective, we can access our still living history to with minor tweaks in design and in manufacturing, we can normalize and generalize non-plastic packaging. We have a bigger problem in the urban Egypt than in rural Egypt. And so in rural Egypt, we have access to this collective memory and collective engineering than, for example, Europe or the United States or Japan do.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It really opens up, you know, opens up the problem or the perspective on the problem. So two things. The first one is waste, right? We're talking about plastic, but essentially we're talking about waste or the problem of waste. I'm not so sure if tackling one problem at a time, I'm not sure. Maybe it's the right way to do it, but I'm not sure. If tackling one plastics, for example, and if you look at the waste, let's just zoom out. If we're just going to talk about residential and consumer waste, which is what we're talking now, or municipal solid waste, you'd find that there are 3 components in your garbage. You'd find that there's organic component, there are recyclables. Recyclables are essentially items that have a market price. That's essentially how it's. And then you have undifferentiated waste, stuff that's, they call it unrecycled, but the definition is the price of recycling it is higher than the price of collecting it and so on. So it doesn't have a price, okay? And that's a big component too, okay? And this one is a problem that's not trending, you know? It's plastic, it has been trending now for a long time. And single-use plastic, I don't know how long we've been talking about it, but we've been talking about it for quite some time, you know? And so that's only the municipal solid waste. You have agricultural waste, you have post-industrial waste, you have construction and demolition waste, speaking about real estate. So, and the new law talks about that. So that's great. Not talking about the old law, the 90s law, the first environmental law, talking about 202, the 2020 law. It talks about like the fact that to solve that problem, you need systemic change. You need change in each component. You need change with each stakeholder to enable that. So I see a lot of time people talking about how they wish there was a change in consciousness in terms of awareness of plastic use and footprint and so on. But we also have to remember that by design, structurally, by design, like this problem is a recent problem, right? It's a problem that was born from the Industrial Revolution, and then you have consumerism picking up. And because of this mass consumerism, mainly in Western countries, this is what caused the majority of the problem. Okay, even if you look at the waste that's coming out of the Middle East and North Africa, the percentage is really small compared to waste coming out of the United States or Europe and so on, or Asia. A great reference is Water Waste 2.0, a very good reference for waste profile. So to answer your question, I kind of digressed here, but I mean, by design, like even if you change consciousness, or even if you wish that consciousness change towards behaviors change of consumers, if they live in a place that there aren't plastic alternatives, what can they do? You know, and if they have the habit of consuming, then it's not about awareness of plastic. It's about the habit of consuming, and consuming is entrenched in the system of production and so on. So it's by design. So we're working within it. Even recycling is kind of working within it, kind of to. But sometimes they say, you know, you can't recycle your way out of that one. You know, whether it's the number of times you can recycle until the plastic loses its components and so on. So yeah, I mean here, Egypt, I would say the informal waste management communities. That's a differentiator. It's a differentiator in several African countries, and solutions have to come from there. There's no way you can get a solution from Europe or any country that has a formal segregation from source. So yeah, work with and think about 20 years from now, how will the informal waste management sector look like? If you solve that one, you're solving Egypt's problem, and you're solving a lot of, I'm not talking about Egypt only, right? A lot of Africa, a lot of Asia, a lot of South America, all right? So that's the context. Thanks.
So Kamal would like to have the last intervention, and then I'm going to close up. Thank you guys for staying so late with us. I know we went over, but this was a very important and rich conversation. Kamal?
Thank you very much. I want to add to respond to the question. There is something we're not discussing enough, بس أنا it's a bit separate. However, there are projections that and it's hard to get the data. It's hard to make an analysis of the data. And the second we even discuss this, I think like industry gets a bit frustrated, understandably. But it's okay. It's important to have these discussions. And the thing is, we are overproducing certain types of plastics. So they become so cheap to the point where demand has to be created for them. And demand is king. Demand keeps the products alive. Globally, there are studies that are showing that certain types of polymers that feed into the plastics are increasing, and certain type of plastic products are being overproduced. And this overproduction obviously leads to a reduction in price, making it extremely cheap to buy. This trend is also similar to the one we're seeing in Egypt. It's harder to make this in a very concrete, evidence-based exercise, based on data. But there is overproduction of certain type of products, which means anyone can have أي حد ممكن دلوقتي يعمل خط إنتاج تحت في أي مكان بيفتح، بس هو بياخد الكومباوندد باتش ويعمل منه أكياس. Can make very straightforward plastic bags, very quick. And unfortunately, that creates it creates a different layer of an issue. How do you even regulate this sort of informality and the issues associated with it? Not even talking about waste management. This is something that becomes hard to engage on, and it's quite complicated and quite tough for a developing economy to get the financial resources and to get the right resources to transition this sort of industry that is to an extent randomized and to another extent growing in different directions, sometimes for the wrong reasons. And I think Dr. Yusra mentioned the importance of the financial mechanism needs to include something to transition and to, in a certain sense, compensate those who will transition away. This is really important, but unfortunately, what we usually see is a tendency where this is not included, where this is assumed that you'll handle this on your own, which is not really fair. To conclude, one of the case studies that I personally had to look at is an example of looking at Dow Chemicals and how long they've been producing certain type of chemicals that have been producing plastics. So once we got to the knowledge of how you produce plastics in the 1940s and the 1950s, they had so much production capacity. In Egypt, we really had this production capacity in the late 1990s and start of the 2000s. There's a 50-year gap. And even in that 50-year gap, there was no, the capacity only really became evident in the past 15 to 20 years. This justice lens, if not applied, we will end up sort of bearing a burden. Why? the burden that you're bearing is while you also had another strategy to grow. انت كنت هتكبر في الاندستري وهتوسع، دلوقتي بيطلب منك تصغر. you're being asked to reduce while you had a strategy to grow, which causing you other sort of conflicting priorities and no way to compensate the strategy that you're going to let go and growth if there is no financial mechanism that fairly sort of compensates the loss that you're going to face. Sorry, that took a bit longer than I wanted.
Thank you, Mohammed, and thank you to all the panelists for a wonderful and vibrant discussion. What we've heard today is that there are some solutions, but coordination, political will, access to finance, and inclusive design remain key to making change. Again, for anyone watching from abroad, access to finance. Thank you to all our speakers for sharing your insights, and thank you to the audience both in the room and on Zoom for being part of this conversation. Let's continue pushing for ambitious action, not just for World Environment Day, for every day. So let's decrease our plastic use. Thank you again, everyone.